Okay, more piecewise functions for today. We're going to be looking at questions 43 to 46. Couple of things I want to emphasize here. We saw this yesterday, well, our last lecture. When I'm dealing with a number, as an example, y equals 3, I get a horizontal line. When my highest exponent is 1, as an example, y equals 3x plus 2, I get a line either going up or going down. When my highest exponent is to the second, as an example, I have parentheses x plus 3 all to the second plus 5, I get a U shape, either open up or open down. And my vertex is negative 3, 5. My vertex sometimes might be part of the graph or sometimes it might not. When I have a absolute value, you notice how from this one, again, my vertex is 0, 3. I'm going to have a V shape, either open up or open down. If my vertex is part of the function, part of the numbers I can choose, I see the V shape. Now, my vertex is not a value that I can choose. I'm only going to see part of the V shape, so which is going to look like a line. But in this case, like a segment. And my last thing is, what if the x is at the bottom, like a number over x? My graph is trying to approach the x-axis, right? We saw that in our last lecture. For today, we're looking at questions 43 to 46. Looking at the x, the exponent is a 1. So I expect this as a line, right? I'm looking at the first equation here. This is basically y equals negative x minus 1. I expect a line. The values of x that I can choose are x is less than negative 4. But let me still choose negative 4, right? It's an important number. And a number less than negative 4. All right, negative 5. If x equals negative 4, looking at my equation, I have y equals negative of a negative 4 minus 1. Negative of a negative is positive. Positive 4 minus 1 gives me 3. Well, what if x equals negative 5? So I look at this as negative of a negative 5 minus 1. Right, a negative of negative is positive. Positive 5 minus 1, it gives me 4. For a line, I knew this looks like a line. For a line, I just need 2 points. My first point, based on the inequality sign, is going to be an open circle. So negative 4, 3 is an open circle. My other point, negative 5, 4, that's just a point. So I start at the open circle and I go through the point. All right, that's the first part of my graph. Let me draw a line because I'm done with that part. My other line, my values I'm going to choose are negative 4 for x and positive 4. I'm looking at this equation right here. And my equation looks like y equals 0. So any value of x that I choose, the y value is 0. So that gives me 2 points. Okay. Based on my inequality signs, my first one, it's a closed circle. So negative 4, 0, it's a closed circle. The second one, it's an open circle. Let me connect them. Yeah, I expected a horizontal line because it's y equals a number. Now let me take a look at the third part. I'm looking at that as y equals negative 3. The values of x I can choose, let me choose 4 to begin with. And it says x is greater or equal to 4. So anything greater than 4, let me choose 5. My equation y equals negative 3 means the y value is negative 3. It doesn't matter what the value of x. So the y value is always -3. My first circle, based on the inequality circle, when x equals 4, I'm going to use a closed circle. So 4, -3 is a closed circle. The point 5, -3 is just the point. So I start at the circle, go through the point, and I get that. Let me take a look at question 44. My first equation, I'm looking at that as y equals 1 over x plus 3. It's a fraction, it's at the bottom. Remember what I said, when the x is at the bottom, is trying to approach the x-axis. So one of the points I'm going to choose is x equals -4. All right, if x equals -4, what's the y value? I'm looking at 1 over -4 plus 3. That's basically 1 over -1. So my y value is -1. Okay, that point, based on my inequality, it's an open circle, -4, -1. I know this is trying to approach the x-axis, and I'm going to graph this approaching the x-axis like that. Once you have a very good idea how the graph looks like, just graph it. All right, let me take a look. My second equation here. Okay, so let me draw a line because I'm going to work the second equation. Okay, it's an absolute value, expecting a V shape. My vertex is going to be 0.0, because 0, I get it from inside of the parentheses. I mean, inside of the absolute, nothing. And then 0, because that's out the number outside of the absolute value. The x values that I'm going to choose are -4, +2. Right, because from -4 to +2. Remember, my equation, I'm looking at this as y equals negative absolute value of x. So then my first thing is, what if x equals -4? So negative absolute value of -4. There's a negative sign. Absolute value makes the inside positive, but because of the negative sign outside, my y value is still -4. Then using the equation, I said, well, what if x equals negative? What if x equals +2? So I'm looking at this as I get, well, -2. So let's see, the first point, closed circle. So -4, -4. It's a closed circle. The second point is open circle. So 2, -2 is an open circle. And then my vertex is the point 0, 0. That's somewhere right there in between. That's just the point. I'm expecting a V shape. I'm expecting a V shape because it's an absolute value. Erase this. Let me erase this. All right, got to take a look at the last part, the last graph. Because the exponent's 2, I'm expecting a U shape. My vertex is the point 2, 0. The 2 is the inside of the parentheses. Remember, got to switch the sign. And 0 is the number outside of the parentheses. The numbers I'm going to choose for x are 2 or more. Cool, I already picked one. So we say, well, what if x equals 3, right? Because it's 2 or more. So I'm looking at the equation as y equals 3 minus 2 all squared. The parentheses, 3 minus 2 is 1, all squared. It's 1. So my y value is 1. All right, my first point, according to the inequality sign, it's a closed circle. So my point 2, 0, it's a closed circle. My 0.31 is just the point. I'm expecting this as a U shape because the vertex is part of my points. I'm only going to see this case part of a U shape. All right, let's take a look at question number 45. My first equation, I'm looking at this as y is equal to 2x. The highest exponent is 1, right? So expect the line, either going up or going down. My first point that I'm going to choose is, what if x equals 0? I have to choose x is less than 0, so what if x equals -1? Or if x equals 0, right, 2 times 0, 0, so my y value is 0. If x equals -1, I have 2 times a -1, that's a -2, so my y value is -2. So the point 0, 0, it's going to be an open circle. And then the point -1, -2 is just a point. Now let me take a look at the second equation. It looks like y equals 2x minus 3. I expect a line out of that one. The highest exponent is 1. But it only says x equals 0. So that's the only x value that I can choose. X equals 0. Right? If x equals 0, 2 times 0 minus 3 gives me 0 minus 3, which is a -3. But notice how it says x equals 0. Okay, so that's the only point that I can choose. So I'm just going to plot that point. 0, -3. It's a point. So I'm going to put it like that. It's not quite a closed circle. It's just a point. But it could be considered a closed circle as well. Let me erase this right here. Now my last equation, I see that as a y equals 1/2 absolute value of x. Notice how the fraction, the 2, I brought it to the front as a half. The x is not at the bottom, right? So it's not quite, it's going to approach the x-axis. This looks like a like a V shape. Okay, so my vertex is 0 because the number inside of the parentheses, and 0 because technically this looks like a +0 there. So that's my vertex, my point 0, 0. But the values that I can choose are 1 or more. So I can choose the values of x equals 1, x equals 2, not the vertex. All right, if x equals 1, doesn't that look like 1/2 times 1? Well, isn't that 1/2? What if x equals 2? 1/2 times 2, isn't that 1? So the points that I have are 1 and 1/2. Let me plot these points. It's about there. You see it? The other point I have is 2, 1. So I'm just going to connect these really quick. And that's it. Now, my last example, let's take a look at number 46. My first equation, I'm looking at this as y is equal to 0. Y equals a number is always a horizontal line. The values that I can choose for X are -4 or less. And the Y value is always 0 in this case. So my first point is a closed circle, -4, 0. And then the point -5, 0 is just the point. So it looks like this, my first part. Remember, we call this piece Y, so the first piece. The second piece, I'm looking at that as Y equals -X minus 2. The highest exponent is 1, so I'm expecting a line. The values of X I'm going to choose are -4 and +1. If X equals -4, I get that Y is equal to 2. Right? Just plug it in there. Negative of a negative minus 2. Now, if X equals -1, I get that my Y value is -3. Actually, I just plug them in there. So that gives me 2 points. The first point, based on the inequality sign, it's an open circle, -4, 2. The second point, based on the inequality sign, it's a closed circle, 1, -3. And I know this looks like a line, so I'm just going to connect those. My last equation, I'm looking at this as Y equals -3, horizontal line. So the values of X I can choose, let me choose X equals 1 or more. The Y value is -3. My first point is an open circle based on the inequality, 1, -3. So 1, -3. It's an open circle. And then 2, -3. So it's going to look like that. Once I see the whole graph, it still looks like a closed circle because it was already a closed circle to begin with. It should look like that. Let me zoom out so you guys can see what we did.